And I am going to record. Okay, now it's recording. Um,
So I have to tell you this funny thing.
uh-oh.
As I logged in, oh my God. So I think at the end of September, Zoom did some kind of update. And my whole Zoom, I couldn't host a meeting for crap. Like it just wouldn't work. And then I just saw this thing that says Zoom 5.0 is here. And I'm like, oh God, what's gonna happen?
It's great when they update things, and I love that, but something screwball is going to happen.
Yeah. So yeah. And I just am like holding my breath, you know, is it going to work? Am I
Yeah,
going to have to add another waiting room? Like, how many different places am I going to be storing people?
where am I going to find them?
Exactly. Hi, Beth. Hi, Danielle. Hey, Jason, Lisa, Shannon. I'm glad to see you guys.
Good morning.
It's, I tell you what, I look forward to these Thursday mornings.
I know, I do too. I like when stuff happens during the week. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to Aisha about it.
So you are in Maryland right now,
I
days,
am. I am. I
two
am in.
days from your son's wedding.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing the best we can here. And by the way, Aisha, my husband says hello because he misses you this morning because he's usually sitting across from me at my desk
Oh.
and he's listening and laughing at all the stuff we're talking about. And right now he is driving all the grandparents down.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, tell him I said hi.
I will. God bless him. He's
Yeah.
doing that and driving in the rain. So it's 8:25. Let's get started. Welcome to Empowering Women Entrepreneurs with the fabulous Aisha Hamilton, who's the owner at Hamilton Law, and she
By the
focuses.
way, that's the only reason I show up every Thursday is because you call me fabulous.
I
I'm,
try to change up my adjectives too. The fabulous, the illustrious. So she takes care of employees and if they have any issues. My name is Elisa McCabe. I'm the owner at First Steps Financial, and we help small businesses simplify processes, organize their financials, and gain insight. So today, like Aisha and I are, so I'm so excited that we have a female vice president. But then it got me thinking, and Aisha and I like go back and forth on this. It's like, that's great. She's okay. We have a woman there. That's so awesome. How is she going to work? Like, how are we going to deal with this inclusion in the workplace? Oh, great. She's there. They've included her. Are they going to let her dance? Like, what's going to happen? And I don't know. I'm so happy that it's now out there. Um, and Aisha, I mean, I know you were riding for Biden from the beginning anyway. So this is all good for you.
but I'm excited that he won, right? I do consider him to have won the election. But I think,
Everybody has. I think there's only a handful of people who are in denial.
yeah, but I feel like even more significant is the fact that we have this woman in the White House, right? And
Yeah.
she is not your shy retiring woman. I mean, she is one very impressive cookie, and I, I think that that's the role model you need up there, right? So I didn't always sort of agree with some of the other women in
Hmm.
important positions in the Trump administration because they weren't necessarily the role models that I was looking for me or my daughter, right?
Right.
And so
Agreed.
it's interesting, as I was saying to you earlier, as I was sitting down to think about, what are we going to talk about today? I thought back to when I was a baby lawyer, right? You're right out of school, you're in your first job, you're so overwhelmed by I'm working. And I think back to, and I know I've mentioned this, that there was nobody that looked like me in
Yeah.
the firm where I worked. And so as a result of that, there was nobody that reached out a hand to say, let me mentor you. And I know
Mhm.
we've talked about that. So that then really shapes the kind of person I want to be today, right? Is I think we as women in a particular stage of our careers have an obligation. And it doesn't stop at color and gender, right? That
Yeah.
obligation goes much further than that.
Oh, I totally agree.
So,
The-
it was interesting to think about, and I was describing to you some of the women attorneys that I have cases with. And I will tell you, they're not people I actually want as role models. They are further along in their careers than I am. They are at very high positions in their firms. But I think that there's an element of you need to be respected.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the general consensus is that they are respected in the ways that they conduct themselves and in their practices. And I don't want to be that.
Yeah, I want to. I'm going to circle back to your first point about about you saying no one looked like you. So I started like researching this, and the significance of Kamala Harris is that there are only 4% of women of color reach the C-suite positions. So that's why you never saw anyone.
Right.
Because if there's only 4%, it's not many. That's how significant it is that she's there.
Right.
And then to your second point, there's so much, I think there's so much pressure for her and for all women in higher positions because everyone's eyes are on them. And because there's so few women in those positions that they're heavily scrutinized and they're definitely held to higher standards. And there was a study done, I think it was by McKinley, and they came, many women came away with, they felt as though they represent an entire group. And if they fail, the entire group will be judged along with them. That's pretty tough stuff on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And I wonder if these women that you're encountering, the one that you said that you're not impressed with, they're not somebody you would want to be friends with. They're not being role models for women. I wonder if somewhere along their path that they got that message of not being, you can't be who you are.
Right.
Because you're not going to succeed if you do.
Right. But there's different ways that you can handle that, right? So in fact, I sit on a committee called JPAC, which is, we are the committee that vets judges for appointment in New Jersey, right?
Nice.
And every time I've had to make a presentation on JPAC, and this is something simple, right? It's on Zoom. When I'm done with the presentation, like a couple of women will private message me and say, "Hey, good job." Right? Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a scary presentation because you're literally presenting what you have found about this judge that's going to determine whether they get appointed or not, or whether they're going to get reappointed or not. And, a couple of people will email you and go, "Hey, nice job." And I thought, wow, look how simple that is, right? That's just, I'm a newer member on the committee. They are more seasoned members on the committee. They're just reaching out to say, "Hey, you did a great job," and I hope that they would also feel comfortable to say, "Hey, next time, think about asking this question." That's always like welcome, because it also means that I can learn from every experience.
Well, and it's also their way of including you.
Right.
So, they're bringing you in and building that bridge for you to be able to even turn around and reach out to them and ask them a question.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your business, right? You've got a team all over the country, really, and you have meetings. How do you sort of make sure that everybody feels comfortable speaking? I know you primarily work with all women, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a sense of, hey, Jane over in, this department is kind of shy. How do I bring her out?
Oh, so I don't know if you've noticed, I have a bit of a strong personality and I can be a bit of a bull in a china shop at times. I know nobody got that from this. I try, and it's very, and I try to make a conscious effort of not talking as much and giving other people roles in the meeting, because I also forget sometimes that regardless of my personality, my position is also intimidating. As the owner, I forget, like I'm thinking like, hey, how's everybody doing? I I think as the owner, you have to kind of take a step back and allow other people to step up, because then it makes it easier for someone who's shy to speak up and say something, because you're not going directly against the boss. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? So, and there are people on the team that have shyer personalities. I mean, and there are some people that don't, and we try to reach out and make people feel special. And I think that is when people feel included. So we have someone on our team who is her self-confidence wavers a little because we're a little boisterous, and so we gave her an assignment, which I knew she was going to kill it, and she was so nervous about doing it, and then when she did it, it was so well done, and everybody complimented her, and we told everybody on the team, and we showed them this is the work that she did. And I think that gave her that step in to the group more, to be a little more comfortable, to maybe say something. Because I think the hardest thing, and you know this, is to say something controversial.
Right.
Is even if you're included in the group, so you belong to so many different groups.
Right.
You come in, and sometimes your idea might be different.
Yeah, and
So
it's actually, what we do as women, right, is let me ask a stupid question. I'm so sorry if this is a stupid question, right? But it takes a lot, especially if you're in a room of, 40 other people,
mhm.
to be able to find your voice and to say that, A, I'm scared, I don't think they even want to hear from me.
Yeah.
But B, what if I'm saying is completely off base, right? Like, what if I totally missed the ball on this?
Oh, what if I really am being an idiot?
Right, exactly. And I think that the most welcoming and comforting roles that I have been in is where they actually thank you for asking the question.
Oh,
And it's just a, hey, thanks for asking that question. You raise a great point. Let's talk about it. And even
okay.
if the answer was going to be like, no, you crazy moron, like that's not how we do it. You felt validated for asking the question.
And we have to work that into our language.
Yeah.
We really need to thank people for asking the question. It encourages them to do it again. So, we want, it was so powerful. I was at a diversity and inclusion program that Princeton Chamber ran a couple of years ago, and it was so, so good. And this woman spoke about that. She spoke about being invited places, but they didn't really want to hear from her.
Right.
Like, and anytime she did speak, it was met with resistance.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great that we're starting to bring in more voices. And again, it's not gender, it's not ethnicity, it's really different types of people. We need to have all voices heard. And how do you do that? And I think that is really something we need to work into our language is thank you for asking that question.
Right.
Or even, thank you for making that statement. That's really interesting. Maybe it hasn't something that we've contemplated, or it is something we've contemplated before. And this is what happened with our results.
Right.
So
Just
that's
validate the voice.
yes.
And you don't have to validate the content, right? But you validate the voice. I think the other thing, and I wonder if you use, I think you have mentioned doing this, but I always find it very helpful to have an agenda. If it's
Yes.
a small meeting, it's a long meeting, it's 20 people or 2 people, have an agenda so the person who's kind of more shy and anxious to speak actually knows what they need to speak about and what they're going to be called upon for. So it drives me crazy when you're sitting in meetings and you have no idea what the flow of the meeting's going to be. And then someone's like, hey, Aisha, did you have that report? And you're kind of like, Why didn't
What?
why didn't you tell me you needed that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we do. We are so big. Actually, we even have 3 different templates for agendas. We have all kinds of, because I'm with you on that, because I feel like you're right. It actually empowers those who may not be bold enough to speak, especially when we meet with a client. I've already met with the client and I'm very comfortable with almost anybody. So the next meeting that they have is with my team, and my team is not as comfortable with lots of people. They're very, very smart, but it's not like, that's not their thing. So we always have an agenda, and we talk about each person who's going to be in the meeting. We put a little bio together so everybody knows what to expect, because our client may not be really comfortable with that either. And we actually spell out, we do times from 9 to 9:15. This is going to be discussed. We also spell out what you can expect from us
Oh,
and
wow.
what we expect from you.
That's great.
Because one of the things that I learned from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is the biggest downfall and why most lawsuits happen is because of expectations.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Big
oh,
disconnect, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
you expected someone to do this and they didn't. And then the resolution is a lawsuit.
right.
So,
And when you think about, teams, so Amanda's at a decent sized firm, right? Their group meetings, not just her practice area, but firm-wide meetings might be a lot of people.
mm,
And I remember back in the day when it was, you all went into this one large conference room, and there were sort of these assigned seats, but there was no written down rule. So you sort of knew that if you were at this level, you sat in the chairs around the outside.
oh
If you were at this level, you actually got a seat at the table. It was, and this is the late 1998 to 2000s, right? So
my
it's a
God.
long time ago. But things like that, oh,
Well,
our
I'm
things
waiting
have not
to see.
changed much. Um, but and things like that, I think, are not,
Traditions are important too.
but they're not conducive to encouraging new voices.
No.
Because
And
you're already being placed on the outer ring,
you're being told. I mean, you are physically being told,
physically being told. Yeah,
don't speak.
yeah,
You're here to observe. And to a degree, when you're a junior person, and I believe this in any company, you do need to listen first.
that's right. That's
And
right.
and I think that even when we have like a new client and we want to come in and change everything, we stop and we have to listen first.
Yeah,
Because I think, and that's part of the responsibility of the person who wants to be included,
right,
is that their responsibility maybe is you need to listen first.
right. And I think that that's important too, right? But I think also in the messaging of inclusion, and I'm not talking about diversity issues, just having a voice at the table, right? Being allowed to dance, as you put it. You have to feel welcome to dance. Uh,
Yeah.
and so that's one of those things that you're sort of like, okay, I would go to networking events and I would stand around the outside of the room, and I didn't have the guts to walk up to someone. But let me tell you, the person who walked up to me, I will never forget. Those individuals that walked up to me and said, "Hey, is this your first time at this event?
Mhm.
Welcome. I sit on the board. What can I tell you about it?" That kind of stuff really is impactful.
Oh,
So think
yes.
about all of us as being at these places in our careers now where we have an obligation to do that.
Right.
It's not just a nice thing, right? Don't we, as having gotten to a certain age and a certain position, have an obligation to reach a hand back?
Yeah. You know what? I agree with you. I agree 100%, especially because we've all been there
Right,
and we know how that person feels.
right,
And
exactly.
yeah, no, I do. I definitely think we have a responsibility to that. And I think, I know Sal Levatino is a business coach, and
Right.
he is huge for doing that. Whenever he goes to networking events, he talks to everybody,
Yeah.
and he's very genuine. He's not, he's not that guy who's trying to meet everyone in the room. But I feel like, and he will pull you in and introduce you to other people.
Right.
Christine Kernan at the chamber does that all the time. She will she will take you and be like, "Hey, you need to talk to so and so," and making those connections. And I know part of it is her job, but I've been to other chambers where they don't do that.
Yeah. No,
And
she's actually unique in that.
yeah,
And I think that the nice thing too, right, in being in a leadership position in an organization like Christine is,
yeah,
I think she recognizes that it's important to build the connections and build the bridges.
yeah,
And so in the networking context, you should think about what your role is, right?
hmm,
It's not just there, you're not just there to collect business cards and then go back to your desk and because somebody told you you needed to send the follow-up email and set up a coffee. That's not just it, right? Is I think when you position yourself as being a welcoming, happy face, that's actually much more impactful than your business card ever will be.
yeah. No, it's totally true. It is, and I think, um, the other thing that Christine does in that respect is she will introduce you to other people, but then she gets you involved.
Right.
She lets you know she wants to hear what you have to say. She'll say, "Do you want to be on this committee? Do you want to do this?" And it just makes you feel so important. And I think that is huge, and it makes people want to belong to that. So even in a company, when oh my God, Beth said she says she has her own firm because Aisha sat next to me at a conference.
Listen, I will talk anybody into getting out of under the thumb of the man.
Well, we also Aisha and I were also just talking about how because we have our own companies, we can choose who we want to connect with.
Right. Yeah.
Your
And
word.
and I think that, sort of back into our theme, right, is looking around at the people who give you a good feeling,
Yeah.
right? And thinking about, well, how do I think Elisa interacts with her employees,
Mhm.
right? How do I, that seems to work. I mean, they seem to like her. She doesn't have a lot of turnover. Her management style seems to work. Interestingly, your management style has always been delivered via Zoom, right? Which is
Yeah.
fantastic. So it's like you knew we were going to go into this nightmare. Um, but the one thing about Zoom, and it's an interesting way to think about this, is it really equalizes everybody. Everybody's box is the same. Everybody's camera is the same. We all look this, we're all on even footing.
I
There's
never
no
thought of that.
hierarchy to the box. Um,
Yeah. I want a bigger box. Wait a minute. I
exactly.
didn't think about that. Wait a minute. You just came up with a new idea for Zoom.
Yeah,
Certain people have bigger boxes.
the host should get a bigger box if I'm paying for the Zoom.
Oh, I love that. I never even thought of that. But yes, no, everybody, it does. It levels the playing field.
Yeah. And I think it takes some skill in not everybody talking over each other, but
Mm.
but there is really the potential of like the hand raise feature of making sure that everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always sort of wonder about, right, is, and I don't have a team, right? So it's me and my paralegal and my bookkeeper. We're all good. But with people who have larger teams, how do you identify someone who is an introvert and then reach a hand out to them to say, hey, Jane, do you have something you want to add? But not putting them on the spot, right? Because that's
Oh,
going to blow their mind.
yes, you can just ask Michelle. I do that all the time. I'm like, oh my God. So Michelle did this thing the other day. She's so amazing. And everybody's like cringing. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to say you guys are fabulous.
Yeah,
No,
throw
but
the
it's
spotlight on her.
Oh yeah, no, but you're right. How do you identify that person? So I got to be honest. I cheat. I make everybody on my team take a personality test. So I have a heads up before there's like too much interaction.
Yeah.
It's like I start to like. It's just easier to and I got to tell you, I cheat. I send everybody my personality test too. Like, don't expect me to be someone that I'm not.
And maybe one of the ways is to sort of, reach out ahead of time and just say, hey, Michelle, so I'm gonna spotlight you on this, but I'd like you to say a couple of sentences about how you got there, right? Or
Yeah.
how that process worked so well this time.
Right.
Because everyone else benefits from that too.
No, it's true. And Michelle just had a good point too. She said the nice thing about being on Zoom, like doing the gallery view, is you can actually see everybody's reactions.
Yeah.
So you can see when someone is, you start talking about it and you look at everybody and people are like laughing or smiling in reaction. And then there's one person who's not,
Right.
and then you just try to feel that out. And because I would feel horrible if someone on the team didn't feel included. That would be, and didn't feel like they had a voice either, because
Right.
I feel like, look, the only way to get to where we're going is if we're all going in the same direction.
Right.
And I think that's when you end up having high turnover. You had mentioned a firm that has a lot of high turnover, and I'm thinking that's because they don't feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
That's right.
They're
And
not
then you
all.
leave, right? I mean, and it's interesting. I mean, this firm is my adversary now on a case. And I was describing to you how I have me, little old me, and 4 lawyers on the other side. 3 are women, one's a man. The man conducts himself completely different.
Mm,
The women are playing every silly game in the book.
mm.
And all that says to me is, wow, I'm really onto something because you're doing everything but talk about the facts of the case. So I'm good. Like I know I'm onto something. But even in the way that they're interacting with me, right? This junior lawyer who's maybe 3 years out of law school has been ridiculously disrespectful to me in emails. And I think, you know what? I don't know what they're teaching you over there, but I
Oh,
don't have a whole lot of respect for it. And certainly, if I were training an associate coming up through the ranks, I don't believe that you are being trained on good professionalism.
no.
This is how lawyers get a bad name.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
it's not being inclusive, and they're not,
yeah,
because if she wanted to present a good front, even for her team, even for the lawyers that are against you,
right.
it's, yeah.
And,
I,
I love Denise says it's so much fun when you beat people like that. Denise, you know what's even more fun? And yes, I'm going to wipe the floor with them. But even more fun is I'm currently drafting a motion where every single one of her snarky emails is attached as an exhibit. So,
I love it.
word to the wise, don't draft an email that you don't want a judge to read.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and that's, I mean, honestly, why isn't that something that people are being trained as they're coming up through the ranks, right? And I don't see this strain of behavior. And I've talked to other people who have had cases with this team, and they say they do the same thing in every case. It's a litigation strategy for them. And I think it's interesting that you've picked a litigation strategy that actually makes you kind of an awful human being,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think that in our roles as managers or mentors or employers or anything that you actually have to compromise who you are. And so maybe I'm giving them too much credit and they're not compromising who they
I
are.
know. I was just thinking that. I'm like, but Aisha and I, we think like everybody's nice. They just need the right tools to get there.
Right?
And
We're
maybe,
so naive.
maybe they're not. Maybe that's really who they are.
Right,
Maybe that's how they deal with things. Maybe that's how they communicate with their spouse and their children, and
right.
that works for them.
Yeah.
But
So,
it,
not the other thing that we had talked about sort of at the top of this program was we get to choose who we're going to be.
yeah.
Right? we get to choose the kind of manager we're going to be, and we get to choose the kind of person that we're going to be operating in life, whether it's in your business or outside.
Right.
And so give that some thought.
Mm-hmm.
Give some thought to how you're perceived, not just by your employees, but by, the checkout person at the grocery store, or the waitress who just brought the wrong order, right? Is it really worth it to be an asshole?
Yeah.
Say that?
Yeah. No, it's totally true. Is it worth it to do that? We are up against, we got 1 minute, and it was so much fun talking to you. And when we speak next week, I will be an official mother-in-law. And
it's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a little crazy and stressful, and thank you. It's
just start drinking now. It's all good.
All my kids are here, and their significant others are here, and it's just crazy. And so next week we're going to be talking about where we learn things, and is it blogs, podcasts? How do we continue? Hopefully it'll be that, or unless something else happens in the world that we need to talk about.
We'll talk about that, right?
All right, great seeing you. Nice seeing everybody. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Happy wedding.
Thanks.